We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Nick. Nick has a has a case of mild tinnitus. Okay, and he has noticed a difference in his listening experience in his home theater compared to commercial movie theaters. At home, he usually watches a Blu-ray at -35 to -30 dB. If he goes 5 to 10 dB louder, he gets listener fatigue and ringing in his ears that lasts for the rest of the day. That is no bueno.
No.
At a commercial theater, he sits one screen width away from the screen, so he is closer than 2/3 and probably hearing the movie louder than reference volume as a result. But he can watch two movies at the theater back to back without any fatigue or ringing. I want to say one of the first migraine headaches I ever got was going to a double feature. I mean, it completely floored me. I've only had about two or maybe three migraines in my life, and every single time they've been debilitating, and that was like the worst one. That was also the time I saw the Incredible Hulk, Hulk. The first one,
Ang Lee?
The Ang Lee one. Yeah, that was awful. But the Hulk parts are real good. He knows that fatigue often comes from distortion, but he has good speakers. The Ascend CR2 mains, a Purion outdoor surround, and an Outlaw LFM1 sub. So he doesn't think that's the problem. Except for the fatigue, the quality of the sound is much better at home than commercial theaters. His room has plush furniture and is fully carpeted, although he doesn't have any further acoustic treatments. He wonders if that could be part of it. Although when he goes to church, the sanctuary is about the same size as a theater, but the sound is more reverberant, and yet he doesn't get fatigue or ringing there. What is going on here, and what will reduce this issue at home? High wattage amps and compression horde speakers like they use at the theater? I want to say, okay, first of all, just a quick, this is just how things work. At movie theaters, one of the things they're really concerned about is you getting enough treble at your seat.
Uh-huh.
You know, so they boost the treble. They make sure the
X curve doesn't. The X curve is a roll off in the treble. But,
so they want to make sure that you're hearing what everything's. I think at the theater you're getting a roll off because of how big the room is. The same thing at your church. You are, the room is just so big and it's so far away. Then there's so much stuff in there. A lot of times they're really treated. You're getting a roll off on the top end that you're not getting at home. What I think you're hearing, and I've experienced the same thing myself. I want to say that, not the tinnitus thing, but the listener fatigue has happened at home more often than any place else, and it's because the extension is so good. And I think, like we talked about with our last listener, having something like Odyssey try to give you an absolutely flat response, can cause a boost in the treble that will sometimes be too much, even though acoustically or objectively from where it's measuring, this is what it's trying for, but your head isn't exactly where the microphone is, and it's making it sound a little bit too shrill. So what you need to do is find a way to just damp down a little bit. Like, look at your Odyssey settings, and if you've got them or whatever, and just roll. You see if it's boosting a lot at the top end, roll it off a little bit.
Yeah, that's I mean, it typically is the high treble that causes that fatigue. That's normally the culprit. It can also just be sheer volume. For example, I notice he only has one subwoofer. Is it possible that he's sitting in a big hump and it's just sheer sound pressure level of a particular frequency that isn't being taken care of because he has a standing mode? Now, normally you'd notice that. You'd hear that a certain frequency is way louder than all the others in your bass, but not impossible. But I mean, honestly, this was a little bit confusing to me because for me, it's the complete opposite. I will get fatigue when I go out to the theater. I don't at home. So, this hasn't been my experience.
Right.
So that was a little confusing, but
also depends on the theater for me. Like
absolutely.
Some theaters I got no problems with. Other theaters I'm like, all right, this is just too loud. This is too much, and I think it's the calibration of what they do at those theaters and maybe what speakers they use and all that stuff. So,
but the other culprit can be just the ambient background noise level. Because like most of us, if you've just been driving in a car with the air blowing on you for an extended period of time, you'll notice that if you pull into a quiet garage and you turn everything off, your ears are ringing.
Right.
Now, it wasn't that things were particularly loud. It's just that it was this constant noise happening, and that can leave your ears ringing. So, I mean, most commercial movie theaters have quite a nice low noise floor in them. They don't have a lot of ambient background noise, whereas at home, maybe there's just more noise going on, and then you are playing things loud enough to overcome that noise floor.
Right.
Although the setting he has on his volume dial suggests otherwise.
Yeah, it does. Negative 30 to whatever it was, negative 35 is
That's quiet.
Pretty low. Yeah. That's what I have on, like, on normal movies. I'm way up at, if having everybody in the theater where I know my wife doesn't want it too loud, but I want it loud enough where I'm having a good time, the kids don't mind one way or the other, I have it about negative 12 and a half. That's where I live. YouTube or some of the other streaming apps and Netflix as well will be negative 25 and negative 30. So, you know, those I think are mixed a lot hotter than Blu-rays and DVDs will be.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree. I don't. It doesn't sound like he has a ton of background noise in here.
Wouldn't seem so. No, I mostly agree with Tom. I would definitely look at your equalizer settings. Make sure that treble isn't being boosted. If it is, rerun it until you get flat if you don't have access to an editor app or a way to manually alter that. If you do have a way to manually alter it, just make sure that your treble isn't being, boosted too much. That would probably be the top culprit.
Yeah. So Nick is also confused by the advice we gave Nathan on episode 546 about 4 subs. I want to say I wasn't here for this one either, but
you were.
I was.
You remember?
I don't. He asked a similar question last year, and we said that the way he was calculating wasn't correct. But when we explained it to Nathan, it sounded like the wrong way Nick was doing it before.
I looked at both the videos, and I wasn't seeing that, but we'll go over it again anyway because it bears repeating. So that's totally cool.
I have no idea what I'm reading here. This doesn't make any sense. Can you explain this question to me?
So he was trying to figure out how much room gain do you get. So if you go to Database or Audioholics and you look up the output numbers for a subwoofer that's ground plane measurement at 2 meters, but that's to simulate an anechoic measurement.
Sure.
Right. Now, when you bring it into a room, you get room gain. And when you place it close to a wall, you get a boundary reinforcement. And when you place it in a corner, you get extra boundary reinforcement. And then when you add multiple subwoofers, you get increased output as well, though not as much as you might think.
Right.
So he was just trying to figure out, if I get 4 subs, how much gain do I actually get versus those anechoic figures? How much should I add to those anechoic figures to get an idea of how loud the 4 subwoofers will actually play? So he initially said he thought he gets 9 decibels of gain just by bringing the sub into the room. Then if he puts it in the corner, he gets an additional 3 dB on top of that. So at this point, he's plus 12. Then if he goes from 1 sub to 2, both of them in the corners, he thought that gives him an extra 4 dB. So now he's at 16. And then if he goes from 2 to 4, he'd get another 4 dB. So now he'd be at plus 20. And we said plus 20 doesn't quite work out. That isn't what usually happens. We said that mathematically you should end up with 15. And in the previous video, when we talked to Nick directly, I said, there's this odd thing that happens when you go to 4 subs, which is that the level doesn't always go up from 2. At some frequencies, it will actually go down. So that it's somewhere in the range of 12 to 15 dB. You take 4 subwoofers, 4 identical subs, you put them in the 4 corners of your room, you get somewhere between 12 and 15 dB more output than the anechoic measurements that would be listed at Audioholics or Database or something like that. Okay. Now, when we talked to was it Nathan, right? Nathan the other week. I said 15 because I was just going by the mathematical. So the mathematical is whenever you put the subwoofer next to a boundary, and the floor is a boundary.
Right.
Whenever you put the subwoofer next to a boundary, you get 3 decibels of boundary gain. So just bringing the subwoofer into the room gives you plus 3 over the anechoic. You put the subwoofer on the floor next to one wall, you get plus 6. You put the subwoofer in a corner, you get plus 9 because you got wall, floor.
Right.
So that's where you get the plus 9. So that's it for the boundary gain. Then you go from 1 sub in the corner to 2 subs in the corner. That gives you an extra +3. Now you're at +12. And then you put from 2 to 4, all 4 of them in corners, you should get another 3 dB. Mathematically, you should get another 3 dB, which gets you to +15. So that's what we...
Yeah, it's important to note here that he's talking about different corners. We're not talking about stacking.
No. If you
you get +6.
+6 if you stack them. But we're talking about 4 subs in 4 different corners of a rectangular
If you stack
room.
4 subs, you get 6.
12.
12. Right.
Yeah. So that's where that came from. I think where he got confused is he thought just by bringing it into the room, you got +9 right away, and that isn't the case. You get +3 right away just by bringing it into the room because now it has a floor. The anechoic assumes no floor. That's simulated by having the microphone 2 meters away instead of only 1 meter away in the ground plane measurements. So that's what's going on there. Hopefully that's clearer now. So for every boundary, +3. For every doubling of the number of subwoofers, +3. Mathematically, that's the way it should work. When you actually go and measure it, sometimes it's not quite that much. Sometimes it's a little bit more because the room is ringing and you actually get a time boost on top of
delay.
it.
Yeah.
So, but 15 is the ballpark. That 4 subs in 4 corners.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.